The next presentation is also online by Erik Veitch, who is a PhD student of Ole Andreas that just was presenting. His paper is called Collaborative Seafaring on Highly Automated Ships. This is the last presentation before the afternoon tea break.
From captain to button presser, operators' perspectives on navigating highly automated ships. Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation. My name is Erik Veitch and I am a PhD candidate at the Department of Design at NTNU in Trondheim, Norway. What does the future of seafaring look like? What does it mean to be a captain of an autonomous ship? These are some of the questions that interest our group at NTNU, and they are questions that motivated the work that I'll be presenting today. This, by the way, is the NTNU Shore Control Lab, and our group is contributing research towards building this future of seafaring and land-based operation of autonomous ships. In this presentation, I will be talking about teaming with artificial intelligence, or AI, in a seafaring context. We believe that AI is already changing the way seafarers work and will continue to do so as we develop higher levels of autonomy in ships. The problem that motivated our work here was that little is actually known about how this new format of seafaring work will unfold in real-world conditions. We investigated this problem by interviewing 5 captains working aboard very special ferries. These are ferries that have been outfitted with autocrossing and auto-docking technologies. Now, before going any further, let me explain what autocrossing and auto-docking are. The idea is straightforward. The captain presses a button to undock the ferry, then presses another button to start the ferry crossing, and then when the ferry arrives at the other dock, the captain then presses yet another button to dock the ferry. That is to say, the ferry automatically undocks, crosses, and docks, and all the captain has to do is press the right buttons at the right time and watch out for other marine traffic. So the ferry is, of course, by no means autonomous, but it represents a big step towards the vision of autonomous ships. And for us, it represented an opportunity to hear from the operational side of what it's actually like to work aboard a highly automated ship. So who did we interview and what ferries were they on? For privacy, I'm using pseudonyms, but here's some background information on our data sample. There were 2 ferries, the Korsvika and the Hammervik. There were 5 interviewees. There were Ola, Lars, Robin, Henrik, and Magnus. Now, the important details are that they all had about 1 to 2 years of experience using autocrossing, with only the Korsvika using auto-docking. And the Korsvika used the auto systems about 50 to 70% of the time, whereas the Hammervik used them 100% of the time for all crossings. Now, the interviews, which lasted about an hour, were done in a semi-structured way and revolved around 4 questions. The first 2 questions started easy. Can you tell me about your background? What name do you use for this new automated navigation system? And then the last 2 questions got more into the details of our research question, which was, what changed, if anything, as a result of this technology being introduced? And have you become a better navigator as a result of the automation? Now, to analyze the results, we used a mixed methods approach. So using the same data sets, we ran both a quantitative and a qualitative analysis, plus we had another group independently analyze the data set using qualitative methods. So these stick figures here, they represent 5 of the co-authors. Here are the results of the quantitative analysis. This was done in the software Leximancer, which runs a latent semantic analysis on the text. 5 major themes were uncovered. The most significant of these themes was so-called button pressing to switch between manual and automatic. From the qualitative analysis, 3 major themes emerged. Now, I recommend checking out the paper for more details, but what I'll do here is I'll walk you through these three themes very briefly and highlight a few of the interesting quotations. So the first theme was agency, which means the ability to actively influence the world. My captain and I, if we're auto-docking, we say, Betty's taking care of it. Then he knows that auto mode is on. If we have normal autopilot on, then I say, Betty's not taking care of it. So here we discover that operators attribute a significant degree of agency to the auto systems. One mechanism for doing this, as we see here, is through the nickname Betty. The technical term for this is personification, a type of metaphor that allows us to understand phenomenon in human terms. Okay, the second theme involves benefits of using the auto systems. We have 8 different navigators on this ferry, and all of them do their job a little bit differently. The system always does the same. There are always some variables for us humans that the system does not have. Here, Henrik is describing the maneuvering of the ferry as being more consistently done with the auto systems, with potentially less human errors too. The third theme from the qualitative analysis involves drawbacks of using the auto systems. The working day of the captain will get boring. You press 3 buttons. There's no challenge. You become an operator who monitors the system and is ready to press a button if there's a bug in the system. So here we see that a more passive monitoring role is characterized as boring. And the captain even remarks that there's no challenge associated with this type of work. So loss of vigilance, or the ability to pay attention, has perhaps been compromised here. Now, I recommend, once again, reading the paper for more details about each of these themes I just mentioned. But here, moving on, we'll summarize all the findings into 3 orders of effects on seafarer work. First order effects are largely what you might expect, involving improvements on task performance. So fuel consumption was optimized. We saw that docking was made much easier in poor visibility, lower frequency of human errors in maneuvering, and there was a reported higher consistency in operations. The second order effects begin to involve elements of human-computer interaction. Mainly this had to do with how the automation was freeing up the captain's ability to pay attention. So if this newly freed up attention was refocused on too little, it led to boredom and eventually to de-skilling. Now, if the captain's newly freed up attention was rather refocused on too much, like when taking on new roles, new tasks, it led to what we called stretched resources. Third order effects involved organizational elements. The captains, namely, characterized their changing work as one of shifting towards something they called button pressing backup. Now with this came a clear sense of resentment towards the technology developers. The captains felt that their tacit knowledge, gained through long experience, was being undervalued. They also felt that the status that comes with being a captain was being undermined. And there was resentment towards the ship owners even, where the captains felt that safety was being compromised when resources were being stretched, when this newly freed up attention was being used to assign the captains new tasks and new responsibilities. And finally, there was an occasional sense of foreboding that their jobs were being automated. So it started out so positive, with first order effects clearly pointing to increased task performance, but it ended up highlighting major design challenges towards these higher interactions and eventually organizational elements. Now we think that this can serve as direction for future work, especially as we invest in yet higher levels of autonomy. The bottom line is that seafaring work is still firmly under human control and should be under human control, even as we incorporate more intelligent machine systems. This inspired us to propose a definition for a new type of seafaring that is emerging and that we have to get right. This new type of seafaring is called collaborative human AI seafaring. And it's a format of seafaring whereby tasks are coordinated between machine agents and human operators in such a way that it improves the ability to collaborate with and support seafarers' primary control duties and safety responsibilities. So to wrap up, how does this contribute to maritime autonomous surface ship design? Well, for one thing, it highlights an important design goal for autonomous ships, which is seamless cooperation between intelligent machines and human seafarers. It also highlights the emergence of a new culture of work, and one that we should pay attention to and foster. Okay, that is it for this presentation. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to any questions.
Do we have any questions for Erik Veitch in the audience? Yes, remember to introduce yourself and your institution.
Hi, I'm Louis from ABS here in Singapore. So I have two questions. The first question is I just want to clarify whether in your interview, were the buttons pressed on board the vessel or is it away from the vessel in the remote control center? And my second question would be, what is the impact of the automation of this task on the captain's sense of responsibility to the operation that is taking place? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Louis, for your question. To answer the first question, the buttons are located on the ship's bridge, so they were retrofitted onto the to the bridge. To answer the second question, which was what was the second question again? This was.
What is the impact?
Oh yes, responsibility, safety responsibility. Yeah, that one. I already started turning the mental gears here because that was one of the fundamental questions that we were looking for. Is like we hypothesized that yes, this responsibility or something was changing as a result of introducing this automation into the bridge, and we were interested in trying to identify that, set some words onto that this change. But in terms of responsibility, they still felt that they had responsibility of the ship. They still said, "This is my ship. I'm still responsible for everyone on board. I'm still responsible for the ship." So exactly this responsibility feeling that remained unchanged, definitely among all the seafarers that we interviewed. So yeah, the only thing that changed was their like how they did their tasks and how much time, how much attention was freed up as a result of not having to have direct control over the maneuvering.
Okay, thank you.
What's the question again?
Thanks, Erik. Alan here from TCOMS. I actually have two different questions. One is, did the automation actually show improved efficiency or fuel savings, or did you cover that part of the study? And the second question is, do you have any ideas how can we take advantage of the time which is freed up from the captain to do other things that might be useful?
Yeah, these are good questions. For the fuel consumption, that was reported. So the interview subjects, they reported that yeah, fuel consumption was better over time than anyone can individually do. In fact, one operator said for one single crossing, I can probably beat the automation, they said, but over time, there's no chance the automation will beat the seafarers because, and whether now the numbers to back this up, that we don't have. But I got the impression that their management was reporting to the operators that that fuel consumption was made better with the auto systems working, and that was actually the main. One of these ferries had their autocrossing system on 100% of the time. So some of these captains hadn't actually crossed this fjord in over a year manually, and they were getting pressured to use it all the time because it saved so much fuel. And for the second part of your question, advantages of what they can do, what they can do with this newly freed up retention, right? That's kind of the big question. Is what do they do? I can tell you one thing that they shouldn't do. There was you can check out the paper for more details, but one of these captains was assigned a role to go down to the cafeteria and sell passengers food during the crossing. And this came as a surprise. Why is a trained mariner running down the stairs, leaving the other captain up in the bridge alone and selling ice cream to passengers in the kiosk? This seemed to be problematic because they had a system then on board to watch this lone captain on board the bridge, and if he didn't move within 3 minutes, then an alarm would go off. So there was even an alarm in place to check if he was asleep, this lonely captain, while the other captain was down selling ice cream. So this seemed problematic because they were trying to stretch resources. This is the term we use, stretch resources. They were trying to essentially moonlight the position of captain to kiosk personnel, and this and because there was no one to check up on the remaining operator up on the bridge, they also needed a system in place to check if this person was still doing his job, still conscious, not falling asleep. So that's something that maybe isn't ideal, but yeah, now the question is, like, what do we do? What is the correct way? What is a safe use of what is an effective use of essentially assigning new tasks, new responsibilities to these captains with newly freed up attention? Their hands are no longer on the steering wheel, to use that metaphor. And what should they do with their hands? One thing that became clear was actually driving manually is important to a certain extent, even though that we have these auto systems in place, even though they perform really well. The results from one of the ferries, these captains were taking over control daily, doing manual crossings, even though they had the auto systems in place. And this, so for example, the first shift of the day, they would get a feeling for the weather conditions. They would get a feeling for the day's challenges, how much traffic was happening. They would get a feel for the day by doing the first crossing in manual mode, and this also made them more. It maintained their skills in sailing. One of the ferry's operators on the ferry that did 100% of the crossings in auto mode, they said that, oh yeah, if there's an ambulance dispatch, for example, then we have to drive in manual mode. We have to drive as fast as possible. He said it's a matter of life and death. So you forget about the fuel consumption and you drive much faster than normal across the canal, the fjord. And so I asked, I didn't ask, but I was afraid to ask, do you remember how to do it? Do you remember how to drive a ferry fast across the canal? Because you haven't done it in over a year, according to what you're telling me. But meanwhile, the captains who regularly are driving manually, even though they have the systems in place to drive automatically, they feel more
engage with the system. They feel that they're, if I was to pose the question, you know, are you ready to take over for an ambulance dispatch, then I'm confident the response would be yes, because we do it every day. Every morning we start our shift with manual mode. So the answer to that was a long answer, but I think it is advantageous to use the freed up attention to get used to this role of backup, to maintain your skills, to still feel like this is my ship. I have responsibility for this ship.
Okay, then we are a little bit over time, so it's time to thank our speaker.